Stephen, you and Ricky Gervais obviously have had, a long, fruitful, collaborative careers together. The Outlaws does not involve Ricky Gervais. That's you on your own. But I just wanted to go back to like your very, very early days. You actually started in radio. Is that right? And you were his assistant at one point.
Yes, a new music station launched in London, and I had just come out of university. I'd done a lot of radio at university, and I always figured that radio was a great way. I loved it as a thing to do, but I also thought, well, I was aspiring to be a stand-up comedian, and I thought, well, if I could do a radio show in the day. And let's be honest, you don't have to put a lot of effort into a radio show. You can show up
let's be honest.
Unshaved, in your pajamas, and then you could, I have the evenings free to do comedy. And so I heard about this radio station that had launched, and I just sent off a resume. And bizarrely, Ricky Gervais had just got into radio himself, and he picked up my resume. And I've always joked that because he was a very lazy man in those days, I think it was on the top of the pile. And so I'm like the first guy he called in, and we hit it off. And yes, he told his bosses he needed an assistant, even though it was absurd because he didn't need an assistant. And so I miraculously got a job. And so he and I met at this radio station. And like, any collaboration, it's all about the connection you make with that person. You have a lot of shared loves and interests, similar tastes, same sense of humor. And off we went, really.
And I'm so curious because so many of the characters in The Outlaws are sort of based on people you've come in contact with in your life. And okay, the very, very, for anyone who doesn't know, the very, very early seeds of The Office, which of course started out as a British series and then became the Steve Carell series in the States. But it started out just as a little kind of short film called Seedy Boss when you were taking courses at the BBC. So who was that based on?
Well, so what happened was I got this job with Ricky, and then I very quickly realized I was probably going to get fired because he didn't know what he was doing and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I thought, I'd been offered this opportunity at the BBC as a trainee, and I thought that's probably, and actually again, my parents were like, you should join the BBC. There's a pension plan. And I thought, well, that sounds sensible. And so I jumped ship and joined the BBC, but I stayed in touch with Ricky. And while I was at the BBC, I had to do a training exercise. And the official exercise was to make a short documentary a real documentary about something in your community. And I said, well, how about I make a fake documentary instead with my friend Ricky, who'd been getting on with. And while we were working together, we had a sort of collection of observations about the kinds of people you work with in offices, including that office. And so we sort of mushed those all together. And the Ricky character, the David Brent character who became Michael Scott in the American version, sort of came out of Ricky almost fully formed. And so we filmed this fake documentary. And it was so exhilarating. I remember cutting it and editing it. And I remember running. I didn't even have a mobile phone. I ran to the phone box and I phoned Ricky in a phone booth. And I said, I've got to bring this round now. I think this is so good. And I went and I showed it to him. We were so kind of giddy like children, like we just made a demo tape, And before we knew it, it started to get a kind of cult following among British comedians and broadcasters. And again, it was all very organic in a way. We didn't sit down to think, how can we make a show? It sort of grew out of this. And like a band, you sort of, I don't know, you never quite have that origin story again. Like everything else you're doing is the follow-up to The Office. But there was this moment in time where we were just these new kids on the block with sort of excitement and glee and nothing to prove. We just wanted to make something that entertained ourselves.